Welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Good Morning Education Show. My name is Rotimi Eitai, and I'm excited to be your host today. And it's a great day to be alive. And we always have this saying on the show that it's a great morning. It's always a great morning on the Good Morning Education Show. And of course, we are always excited to be joined by our top voices, strong voices, analysts in the house, experts in the building, and they're live and ready. And guess what? You're going to be having a surprise today. So let me welcome Titi. Titi, hello. How are you?
Good morning. It's the Good Morning Education Show.
Yeah. And we have Dr. Prophet Bloke Jude.
Oh, good morning, team. Good morning, everybody.
And to the greatest surprise, we have the video from Safe to Change.
Welcome back to Lagos. Welcome back
from Handovers and Legovers. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Please, can you comment Jude for my sake? Please.
She always plays safe.
We need to serve you quick notice, Jude. Quick notice.
Safety chick will always play safe, you know.
That's why you should show your face, Jude. And even people all the way from UAE, all the way from Ireland, they are all looking at
Oh my gosh.
I will make the mistake of asking you to read the comments today.
Come on, they enjoyed it.
All right, good morning. Let's just head over to the headlines because of time, and we'll be back to take our conversation further. Thank you. All right, welcome back. This is Good Morning Education Show, and today is Tuesday, 4th of August. I'm excited today, and I'll tell you some of the reasons why I'm excited, but let me keep that to my chest. So before we go to the topic of today, and that's another interesting part of the session today. So I'd like us to just talk a little bit about the headlines. Starting from Safety Check, welcome back to Lagos.
Thank you. I missed a few of the headlines. I saw more of the event. I'd like to encourage everyone to attend the event that Mrs. Aneke is putting together, Mrs. Lola Aneke, the special needs one. It's really important now because in as much as we've all been talking about online education and all that, I think many times people also forget that we have children living with disabilities who also have to get education. So it's great for parents to learn so that they would know how to put their children together. It's also great for educators to also learn, pick up some tips from all the amazing speakers that they have put together. These tips are going to be important in the coming days, most especially. So I'd love to encourage everyone to plan to attend the special needs event.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And I'm going to be speaking at the summer camp for special educators. So make sure you go and register. All right, Titi, your take on the headlines?
Okay, guys. I saw one that the COVID committee, presidential task force, the presidential task force concerns on the reopening of schools. I guess that's a valid concern. We are all concerned, to be honest. But people said let's try and at least try to move to some level of normalcy. I think what's most important is that special care needs to be taken to ensure that, apart from the safety concerns, there are resources for quick response and testing to happen, so that whatever happens, we can quickly react. I think that's what I would just say. Since I think as a nation, we decided to move forward with reopening of schools, especially for the exam classes. So my advice to all schools is to ensure adhere to all safety guidelines. Government, please support in terms of ensuring that prompt testing can happen, and special emergency response is available, if anything happens. So I think that's what I'll just say at this. The concern is a valid one, but let's just see what will happen.
Okay, Jude, very quickly, any other thing you want to add?
Not really. I will not say anything regarding their committee and all that, because there's always a committee.
Yeah, but there's no tech committee or resumption yet.
You see, so they are neglecting us.
So you need to fire some prophetic prayers on this.
Well, we'll see how it rolls out by the end of the week, or by the end of the month or so.
Okay. So we had a very great time yesterday, interesting time, and just for those who are joining, I would like to thank those who are joining us from across the globe. Nana is online, Abigail is online, and who else is online? Rosalind Egwon is online. So I would like to encourage you all to let us know where you're streaming from, what part of the world, what's your location, and also thank you for joining us. Share your comments, and probably when we have time for questions, we will take your questions as well. So straight to the matter.
We also have Ifyok. Ifyok is also joining us. Ifyok has.
Oh, Ifyok, really? I've not seen Ifyok. Where's Ifyok? Ifyok, say something.
Ifyok is also joining us. Thank you, everyone.
You're taking the prophetic perception now. You are seeing before us.
Ifyok is saying, good morning, everyone. It's great to be back. Welcome back.
Ifyok, okay, thank you for joining. So yesterday we started on a very interesting note, and we spoke about the good, the bad, and ugly. It just reminds me of the movie, The Good, the Bad. If you don't know, then you're
1978, yeah.
Dude, that's why you're spoiling, right? We are not that old. All right. Okay.
I didn't watch it in 1978. I watched it maybe 80s or so.
Okay. It is speechless.
Oh, she has not seen the movie.
No, she doesn't want to expose her MRI scan.
Oh, I get that.
Let's continue.
So everybody's playing football age today. I just turned 16 actually. All right. Safety chick, I'm sure she's clueless of what we're talking about. But we have. I need to ring the bell of blessing. We have some special people joining us today, and it's important for us to recognize them. We have Oluwatoyin Babatunde, thank you for joining. We have Akuma, thank you for joining. Ifyok is here. We have Good Luck, of course. Good Luck is our floor member owing us cake. birthday cake for over 2 weeks now. And we have Dr. C. Ogusoya. Thank you, Ma, for joining. Thank you so much. Finally joining this morning. Great to have her. So, straight to the matter of today. We're talking about alternating offline and online learning. And I would like you to be the first to have a shot at this. This is a reality that we might need to explore. And I would like you to start by giving us more or less like an insight into having that in mainstream schools, offline and online learning, looking at the reality of the COVID pandemic situation.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'll give scenarios, and for countries like Nigeria, for countries with internet issues, I always recommend offline solutions, applications, platforms, not platforms anyway. We can't say platforms, but applications that work majority of the time offline, that is without internet connection. You can download them and install them on your app. For example, if it requires students creating things, definitely offline is the best. If it requires student creating things, maybe they have to create a presentation slide, or they have to record their voices, or they have to create a video and all that. So it is best everything works offline, so that they don't get into trouble when there's no internet. And majority of our platforms that has to do with learning management system, the LMSs, most of them are online, and it's good and it's not good. So it has the good side of it and the hiccup side of it. So I'm looking at a future where we could actually provide an offline LMS that syncs online when there's internet. So it means if a child is working, their work can be saved on the offline version. So once there's little internet or any kind of internet connection, it syncs their reports or their results online, and it becomes live. So that solution I'm looking towards. But I'll talk from the angle of public schools, because at this point in time they are very handicapped when it comes to what is available to them to learn. And so for public schools, like Rhoda suggested, or Rhoda shared, that they use this kind of remote system, maybe it's a Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, proximity Wi-Fi or something like that, to teaching or share instruction, which is very good. I'm even looking at the solution where public school or teachers can actually have this local area network within their project without actually being on the internet. So they just have this local area network that works with their devices or work with whatever is available to them, and they don't have to go online per se. They don't have to go to online per se to reach their students. And moreover, it's all going to now start depending on instructional design, because it's very key. We are always used to classroom design, or what kind of instruction flows or works within the classroom. Now we are in a pandemic, and we are all at home, and we need to teach, right? So you need to start designing instructions that work for that scenario, because you can't use the same instructional design for classroom. You can't apply it to instructional design when it comes to outside the classroom, or cases like this where students don't have a classroom and they need to learn and they have limited resources. So you look at the resources part of it, and look at how you model or design your instructions around that resources or whatever is available to the teacher and the student. And it goes both ways. So it's not going to be, because sometimes the teachers might have all the resources but the students don't have. So you have to take recognition of what is available to the students to learn and what is available to the teacher to deliver instructions to the student. So you build your instructional design around available resources, both on the teacher and student end, so that they have this harmony within within the teaching and learning space.
Fantastic. And Jude, you mentioned something about LMS, and I would think this is the best time for us to zone in on when we talk about LMS. LMS, by the way, is an acronym for Learning Management System, right? Because you can have different acronyms. LMS can mean looking something. I don't say anything. All right. So, Titi, I'm going to ask you. Can we totally embrace the learning management system as a resource to help alternate, as in, I said Eben, Jude actually mentioned that most of these things should be offline, but how can we leverage the use of having a learning management software and system to actually transition to that point where we are moving to having both alternating of online and offline, and probably eventually maybe online?
Okay, thank you, Rotimi. I think I'll first of all say something that Jude was trying to allude to, the fact that this offline, online, we as a nation would only be catering for a small number of people, mostly those in the private sector, and even that not all. Remember that whether you're doing online, offline, there are still those three elements that, well, now two, that need to be there, and that's the fact that you need to have devices, and you need, constant light, which is not a factor everywhere else. People say, oh, it's only people in Lagos and maybe Abuja and Port Harcourt. So it's a fundamental issue in terms of going online and even offline in that sense, as you're trying to explain. So we need to remember that we have those constraints, and that's really the first thing in terms of that. So, but having said that, I think what's also important is, scenario planning. And scenario planning is that with what is happening with COVID, we don't know what the rest of this year will be for the school term, and you need to plan some of, catering for those two options. So I look at the scenario whereby school might open, and in the end, might end up having to do alternate days. So the child is in school on Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday. The child is not in school all the time, especially when they can't limit things. Maybe for people that will go to boarding school, it will be possible to limit interactions, and those can be every day. But if people have to go from home, it just might not happen that way. So a school would need to plan that morning, the offline and online, really for the private schools. When it comes to using LMS, I would say that in terms of LMS, there are two options. There are some free LMS, and there's the LMS where your school can get it. There are a number of open source LMS that you can use. And LMS is simply like a library, a library that you can put books in it. So the books in this case are your content, so you can put your content in it. It gives you the flexibility of, people accessing how they use it, tracking it, and all that. So that's your LMS in a simple, form. But remember that a library requires you to put the books inside. So you need to have the content to be able to enjoy the feature of the library. And then, of course, you need to have the library. So just to come back and answer your question, I would say for the public school, I think you need to plan offline and online, knowing that the future is unknown. But remember that anything you do, I will use the resources that are available to you. If you can go the full hub of having an LMS, all good and well. If you can't, then just manage with the resources that you have. For those schools that can't go online and offline, I would say do your own version of online and offline. So what that means is that if the kids come to school on a certain day, then plan your offline, when they come to school, which is coming to physical school, the day that they won't have to come, plan your folders of resources that they have to do. So technology continues to be an enabler, but the process itself must be there, and then technology enables it. So you can have the process without having the technology to enable it, but just plan for it. So that's what I would say. Every school should plan for all the scenarios, the worst case scenarios. If you have technology to enable, all good and well. If you don't have technology, then just plan with the resources that you have.
Safety Chick, you want to add something to that?
Okay, so I'll just say that they both actually said it on. Every school must plan for the both sides of things, because you can't afford to just say you do only one side and not do the other. You must look for the ones that would suit your context, but you should plan for both so that anyhow the children are covered in both directions.
Okay, so next question, and this is quite important. So we're looking at it from alternating offline and online learning. But another twist to it is this. At what point can we authoritatively say that we are demonstrating being proactive in terms of the learning space and the learning community? Because I recall that there were a lot of conversations mid-April, late April this year, even into May, that kind of alluded to the fact that schools were not necessarily acting in a proactive manner, or they were not proactive ahead of COVID. We had some few people coming out to say that, well, they saw this coming, or they were prepared, or they've done this ahead of time. How do we prevent this repetition? Because, for example, listening to the headline, and I heard the news yesterday, for the Presidential Task Force to say their greatest concern is the reopening of schools. It's possible that something might still change. We've had a situation where they say we're resuming, and then another time something turns it off, and you get to go back to status quo. How do schools get ready, or better still, can schools preempt and act in a proactive way using this reality that we mentioned? Joe, do you want to answer?
I can only speak basically because sometimes when we talk about government, I don't know, maybe there are a lot of mechanisms there that maybe we are not seeing or we are not taking note of that allows them to change their mind in the twinkle of an eye. So for private sector, I would say we have a lot to work with, or we have a lot to actually implement with when it comes to the educational setup for blended learning or for virtual classes. And I think henceforth, I've always been a proponent of, before you buy a TV, buy a computer. You understand? Because I know Rhoda was saying that there are some communities or there are some children that don't even have what they call it. They don't even have TV or they don't have radio and all that. Fine, okay. But for even those that they have TV at least once, even if they didn't buy it newly, but at least they have a TV. I would say, and they don't have a computer. So that it's not putting into consideration what is important at this point. This is not the time to they are putting things out of place, because sometimes we are so used to a society that loves entertainment more than they love knowledge. Love entertainment. So if it's not entertaining, it's not interesting. If it's not entertaining, it's not. So we have coined it around so many things, up to the point that we have edutainment, right? So our society should start looking at the reality of this. We need more computers than we need TVs. We need more computers than we need just radios or anything to entertain us. And for ISO, that's the Standard Organization of Nigeria, I think at this point in time, we should be looking at what comes into the country So if we are importing TVs, then the TVs should be able to record broadcasts, right? And if we're importing radios, even if it's small radios, it should be able to record broadcasts. So students that are not even opportune, so they could just have this maybe 500 naira radio or 1,000 naira radio that can actually record broadcasts in what they call it, in SD card, which they can replay. So if there's a lesson on radio, they can record it into a micro SD card, that's a memory card, and they can replay it. Are you getting it? They can replay the lesson and learn. So they don't need to be on air to replay what have been taught on the radio. So these are ways we can actually start building our communities that are lagging behind. So you will not have anybody say, I don't have a radio to learn. And you can have sponsors who can buy thousands of radios for students and give it to them, and they can record. Because I remember when I was growing up, we used to record broadcast on cassette tapes. If you remember, we used to record broadcasts on cassette. So when we hear the latest music, we already bought our tapes and we start recording it so that we can replay that music and say we are in the know of the latest music or the latest rap tunes or the latest hip hop artists and all that. So I think it's now necessary that even if we are not using cassette tapes, we can have radios that can record broadcast on memory card, which I think there is, but it's not a popular demand per se now, but it's more important at this part of our country, or this part of the world, that we have those kind of devices that can record broadcasts, so that students who are not even able to buy computers, at least they can have their lesson in digital formats that they can replay and learn on their own at their own pace.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I wanted to respond to the question and say that I don't think educators and school owners should feel bad about not being proactive the first time around. The truth is that nobody saw this happening. So it wasn't just the educational sector that wasn't proactive. A lot of us thought this was, how they say they are closed for 1 or 2 weeks. A lot of people thought it would be something that would be very short. Nobody anticipated it. But having said that, the thing is, how do we learn from our experience? So we thought something was going to be a week or two and ended up being 3-4 months. So I think that's the experience to learn from in terms of proactive. So my advice to private schools is saying, it has happened and it can happen again. So taking every single thing, start to plan now. Don't wait for the government. Plan for the scenarios, and that's the proactivity you need to do now. If they open school and we can go to school, plan. If they don't open school and we can't go, plan. And even for the public sector, that's the same thing I've been saying. I think the various state districts or the various hairdressers should also be planning. They should plan to say, look, what can we do? Yes, school might open, but what can we do? I think that's really the thing. What can we do with the resources? Don't plan to buy new resources because there's no money. Okay, don't plan, not many schools go to buy new laptops, buy new things, no. Say with the resources that you have, take inventory now, of the resources that you have and what are the options available to you to do something with the resources that you have. So if all your parents have is WhatsApp, all they have is radio, whatever it is, and don't plan that it has to be only WhatsApp. Don't plan that it has to be only, plan for 3 scenarios. So some people have tablets, okay, they're enough for me to do this. Some people it's going to be WhatsApp, they're enough for me to do this. And some people it's just going to be sending them they're enough to do this. Or is it so a lot of them live in this particular area, so we can then say, coming together in small clusters with this. Whatever it is, whatever your case, whatever your resources, this is the time to plan. And when you're planning, train your teachers and do pilots before the whole thing happens, so that you're more prepared, especially if you've not done a lot of that in the past couple of months. So it doesn't matter what has happened in the past. I think the past has gone. Let's move forward. Plan. Start planning now.
I like that. Just before, Safety, do you want to say something? Okay, please do.
Yes. I would like to say that most like what Mr. Deusi mentioned, nobody expected this. Even those that were saying they were ready, they were not ready for the dimensions. And that's why, if you would notice, some people would say some schools that they all thought were going to do so well didn't do so well. And this period exposed a lot of lapses. So yes, we'll say everybody should take that as a learning curve, right? And there was also something I saw that Nana put up on the screen where she talked about individual learning manuals being sent to school. Sorry, Nana. So I actually know a teacher who follows me from Kaduna. She told me that she works in a low-income school, and that's what they had to do. So she had to visit the homes of the students to drop these packs. And I also know a highbrow school for early years in Abuja who also did the same method. So it can actually work for whether a highbrow school or a low-income school. What is important is what Mrs. Adewusi has mentioned, that plan for different scenarios. This is the time. In fact, this was a conversation we also had with some safety professionals. This is the time to check your emergency response plan. Did it work during this pandemic? If it did not work properly, how can you adapt it so that if something like this were to happen again, you would be ready? So same thing for schools. Schools, put that into perspective. So we were all not ready, right? But somehow, some people have been able to adapt more quickly than others. What can you learn from them? And how can you put it in your own system? This is not a competition thing. I keep emphasizing that we are not in a competition, because I know that it might seem like that's the vibe out there, my school is outdoing your school. That should not be the goal. The goal should be to learn. The goal is actually progress. The goal is actually collaboration. So when schools, teachers, school owners have that in mind, you won't feel less that, oh, you're learning from what somebody did. And so what if you're learning from what someone did? That person also learned it from somewhere. So I think we should stop having those kinds of issues and focus on the core, which is providing education to our children. We do not want children to be left behind. And if we do not want children to be left behind, then we must ensure that we plan for different kinds of scenarios. So we're saying, some of us are proposing radio. Look around the network of children you have, the kinds of parents you have in your school network. Are they the sorts that even listen to the radio? There are so many people that have never listened to the radio. The only time they probably hear the radio is when they are in the car driving. So you have to factor all those into consideration. So is it going to be the individual learning plan that would work for your school? Would it be WhatsApp? Would it be Telegram? Would it be a YouTube channel? Do your own unique assessment and then create plans to suit that.
So, sorry, I want to add something. You know, I like what safety, and then this is really a time not for us to compete, but for us to collaborate. I think this is a time when, you know, schools should be coming together and sharing what worked and what did not work. You know, and it's not only school, but even the government. Because anything that you do, you must have a feedback mechanism that allows you to improve. So I feel that August should be the period of stepping back, reviewing what we did, what was successful and what was not successful, and tweaking it. So we used radio, you know, the states that were using radio. Have we done an evaluation to say how did it work? How effective was it? What can we learn from that? We used worksheets. We use WhatsApp. We use SMS. Whatever it is that was used, we use TV shows. We need to use this period to step back, come together and say, you know what, in my school, this was what worked and this was what didn't work. This was the backlash we got from the parents and this is what we did to do it. And then we can then share ideas and then brainstorm on what would help us and what we all should be doing. I think this is what we should be doing now. We need to be sharing these experiences, honestly say what worked and what didn't work, so that everybody can learn from it. And everybody, you know, the people that didn't even do anything can be encouraged on what they need to do. So they are not starting from ground zero. They can leverage on the learnings of other people in terms of what they as school should be doing.
Okay, I'll quickly take the question by Mrs. Liliana Kuma. And I agree with, before I take it, I agree with Titi that
you have to say the question so we know what the question
okay was. Please, okay, moderator, thank you.
I'll get you.
I agree with Titi in terms of we leverage on what we are building on each other. That is just the truth. We should be building on each other, and we should do away with that mindset that I want to hoard my knowledge, or I want to hoard what has been working for me. And after all, most of the big schools, they are using free platforms, right? So if those platforms were hoarding knowledge or hoarding or selling everything, definitely would not. Most big schools would have fallen face flat, because they can't start building a learning management system in 3 months. It's not possible. With big budgets, it's not possible to just scale your learning management system of your school, because you need to do several tests. And if you scale like that without those tests after creating your software, your platform, you find that the hiccups will discourage parents and students, and you might just end up not continue with the project. So at this point, schools should be able to share. I think that's the reason for association, right? That's the reason for schools association. They come together and share their experiences, and actually put together what works and what did not work, and how it's shaping their mindset concerning educational technology. Now, for the question is, okay, what happens to other learning styles? For the learning styles, I've always been the advocate of learning styles, right? But my most major point in learning styles is, as far you can see, you can hear, you can talk, or you can listen, automatically you are going to enjoy audiovisual learning styles more. Because when we talk about learning styles, we're not talking about children who are defective or have any kind of physical disability. We're talking about children too who are complete. So if majority of our students are complete, or majority of the schools we run, we don't have students who are blind or who are deaf, automatically any learning styles that has to do with audiovisual will suit that setting. Any learning style, and then the kinesthetic style. So we'll not have students who are just only visual or only auditory. We'll have students our students will be using both skills to learn audiovisual means. It's just that sometimes some will depend more on one aspect than the other. And I've always seen this play, that students who are kinesthetic, they like audiovisual materials more. They like, because I'm like that. I like doing things with my hands. So automatically I prefer audiovisual materials. Even in coding, I would rather watch a coding video than just read a whole bunch of notes about coding. I would rather watch the video, and I will learn more by watching the video than just reading it. So I've seen that pattern in students too. They will prefer audiovisual materials. Whether we think they are just auditory or we think they are just visual, they will prefer audiovisual materials. And it depends on your delivery as a teacher, because sometimes when designing an instruction and the visuals become a hindrance to the audio, the students they'll become distracted to hear what you are saying. For example, you create a video and the visuals are too much to absorb, and automatically it will affect the hearing of the student on the message on that video. It will affect the message. So there's a balance and there's a technique to designing instruction or the visual instruction. So we don't have students who are just only visual or only audio. We have students who are both, or who will work well with both audiovisual means and kinesthetic means, and it depends on how the teacher delivers it.
All right. Okay. So I think we could just go straight to comments. Safety Chick, let's use this as a welcome back to Lagos privilege. So I would like you to take our comments, and please ensure that where you need to emphasize, please do emphasize. You understand? All right.
Yes.
So over to you. Let's have the comments.
Okay. Madabisi says, good morning, all.
Don't have students who are just only visual or only audio. We have students who are
I know of schools that used individual learning manuals sent home to students. It was aimed at reducing time spent on screen and for parents and guardians who could not navigate through the use of technology. I found it interesting because it provided an avenue to blend learning. Conversely, we are all trying to be brain, so it might not sit well with some people. No comment. Favor says, good morning, everyone.
Let's say good morning to Rhoda as well. Rhoda.
I just wanted to say, I found a few minutes towards the end. I've been listening. You guys have been absolutely awesome. So I just said, oh, well, I have the few minutes. Let me just come in and say hello.
Okay, so say hello to Nana as well.
Nana, my person.
Nana.
Nana, you guys are going to listen to Nana. When we have this Saturday, we're having the Decoding Dyslexia webinar. So Nana is going to be taking a session there. So Nana is super awesome.
The first person to register is going to be Jude.
Yes.
Yes, I'll be there. I'll be there.
Jude is going to be there as well. Jude is this spot.
Rhoda, my chair is still on the way.
Background noise from me. Oh, I'm so sorry. Your chair is on the way. How can your chair be on the way? Is the noise over now?
Okay, safety check, continue.
Okay, Oduto Preeti Amina says, good morning. The learning craft is, okay, oh, this is saying something back to Favor. Okay, Nana says, totally agree with Mr. Jude, computers first. It would be nice for the government to supplement computers for schools and students. Yeah, it would be nice for the government to support that. Okay, we've answered this question from Akuma Lilian. And Jude has responded to this question. Nana says emergency response plan, the safety check. Thumbs up the safety check. Schools should be effective and open to feedback. Absolutely. That's the only way we're going to grow if we are willing to receive feedback. Akuma also says thumbs up, safety check, collaboration and learning, no competition. Okay. Oduton Preeti says kinesthetic learners can also be taken care of by having them use things around the home to connect them to learning. I have tried and it actually worked. My children really had fun doing that. Awesome. That's improvising on the go. We must share expertise by Jude. Adelola, hi Adelola, how are you doing?
Hello, blessed. Good morning.
Welcome, Adelola.
Jude, are you about to change Adelola now?
I'll have to read our comments later on.
Ifyak says, the audiovisual material serves as a method of instruction delivery. The content of the lesson determines how other senses are engaged in the learning. This is where the teacher needs to consider aspects of multisensory learning. This way, all children and learning styles can be catered for.
I agree.
Okay.
Nana says, oh, I'm looking forward to the session, Rhoda. Thank you so much for the privilege to serve. Awesome. Akuma says, I agree, Jude. The comment is down. No, I've read this one. The one from Akuma. Okay. She says, I agree, Jude. I mentioned learning styles because you emphasize so much on radio lessons. Can DSTV, for instance, dedicate a channel to just learning? And it can as well be recorded as you proposed for radio. All the same, I believe all the LMS platforms have their different advantages and variety. And variety, they say, is the spice of life. I think I'm not sure if it's DSTV now, but I know that when I was in Oshun last week, I stumbled on a channel and they were teaching the children, like having actual classes on TV. I remember seeing a young lady and then a young man also. The young man was teaching, I think, quadratic equations or something. I remember seeing that because it got my attention. Yeah.
Yes, but for the DSTV option, we are talking about very poor students who cannot even afford TV, talk less of DSTV. So that's why I'm talking about the radio option, that it should be, we should be able to at least record on the radio station, since the government, they are beaming instruction on radio. Definitely there should be provision for that, maybe till we start having portable TVs like that, and that are affordable.
Okay. Learning crafts. Okay, the decoding dyslexia is happening on Saturday. All right.
Okay, Rhoda, could you just spend like 60 seconds to tell us more about that?
Okay, so I hope there's no sound from me, Titi, my sound check. Okay, so because dyslexia, I mean, this is our way of supporting this pandemic period in helping a lot of educators and parents as they navigate the world of supporting children with special needs. And so we're going all the way to have conversations around dyslexia, where our focus is on dyslexia this time around because we understand that there's a lot of kids, the stats tell us 1 out of 5 children will be experiencing one form of disability. Dyslexia happen to be 1 out of 10. And so a lot of parents and teachers are having to deal with children who struggle with this reading, what we call it a reading challenge. And so this Saturday we'll be gathering. We've received a lot of feedback and response from a lot of people who want to be part of it. It's a webinar. We're going to be walking you through dyslexia itself to help you to decode it. Talent or terror is what we've titled it as. And we are going all the way from Jude, who is going to be telling us about tech part, how do we support children during this pandemic using technology or tech tools for dyslexia, and to even just being able to identify it. Your task as a parent or an educator is basically not just to start to say this is what this child is by way of labeling, but precisely to know how to support. So we want to help you to identify, is this truly what it is? And then Nana will be telling us how we can actually learn to assess, how we can actually not assess, but how we can actually know what is an authentic dyslexia assessment, because that's another challenge we've noticed that we have in our own pilots. So all of that, from tools to assessment to checklists of identification to intervention models, where Blessing Nyabe, who is our tribe here, will be working us with how do you support a child in this time when they are not with you as the educator, when they don't have access to specialists. And of course, it's a pre, during, and post-COVID approach that she'll be working us with, like how do you teach a child during remote learning with dyslexia. So it's all the whole works, from getting to know how or to identify it in your little way, all the way to all the support services that you'd get when working with a child living with dyslexia. So it's definitely going to be exciting. Join us.
Fantastic. Before I let you go, we've been talking about alternating offline and online learning, and I really want to hear your thoughts about that. And I'm sure some people might be wondering, would there be a need to review or redesign the curriculum to that effect? So Rhoda, over to you.
I mean, totally. See, what everybody has been saying resonates so strongly with me. I mean, you look at even from the truth is that we've needed to redesign. Let me put it this way: curriculum, especially on the point of delivery, we've needed to redesign curriculum for a while. And I like I said one time, this COVID period is an educational storm of blessing. And because now we know that we're saying things that we need to infuse into our classrooms, for sustainability sake. And then, but more importantly is the fact that these, like I said yesterday, these things, these tools, these strategies were the most effective anyway before COVID, right? So now that we have the offline and the online methodology for teaching and learning, do we need to alternate? No, we need to use, okay, so maybe I don't really understand what you mean by alternating, but do we need to pick one over the other? Absolutely not. Do we need to use both of them in tandem? Yes. Because, the examples from the radio and pre-recorded lessons, audio lessons, pre-recorded video lessons, to pre-recorded video lessons being, online lessons on YouTube and things like that. I absolutely believe that this is a time where we've never been in a better time. We've never been at a better time to implement technology in the classrooms. We've never been at a better time to merge this beautiful methodology, very evidence-based approach of teaching children. And you see, these children are digital natives. They don't speak the kind of language we speak. They just come out and flip out the digital part of whatever you ask them to do. They don't want to type. They don't want, when I used to say, what's with all this handwriting? Well, you can now see that handwriting is not the most important thing in the world. I will go. I will go. Yeah, I will keep in that table. I've been saying it for years. Because ultimately, dude, let me stop, please. Don't get me off.
So after shaking table, you want to stop. You better shake the table and break it. What's the use of shaking without breaking?
No, let me let it and safety chief. Save me here. Look, there's certain things that we've done traditionally or historically that has needed
Hello,
to be.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. They needed to go out of the window. The overemphasis of certain things that we've been doing needs to leave the room. And then there's no need. There's nobody. Look, every signature I've been doing appraisals, and my signature is digitized.
And now look at it. In my content to courses, the training I gave some time ago, I was talking about the future of noveling or writing books. The future of writing books will be dictating to your phone and it transcribes it to text. That's the future of writing. So you will not have authors sitting down to write books with pen and paper or even typing it. You have authors actually talking about their book or talking about the chapters of their book, and it's easily transcribed to text and vice versa. And that is the future we are looking at. So automatically you find that your writing skills might not be the number one thing school will be focusing on. It will now be your presentation skills that
Exactly.
you're talking about.
I mean, in any case, Jude, you're so correct and it's so profound because, we're talking about handwriting now, not like writing, because writing itself is, for me, this has never been a better time to get children to understand how to write. Writing is a form of presentation. Writing in itself as a structure in language is something that you must use all the time. And now this time, we're all about content, we're all about presentation and content creation. And content creation cannot happen without writing. So imagine that you're teaching children to use the keypad very effectively, but at the same time, you're teaching them to develop content. So writing presentations, proposals, writing business plans, these are the things that we need to focus on. And those are the things that mean more as they grow older. Those are the things that actually help them craft a career path.
I'm more applicable to real life.
I like. Okay, so yeah, I like the twist and the conversation, and you came in at the right time, Rhoda. And before you got in, we were really talking. Titi, why are you laughing now? I'll be keeping my own conversation to the last. All right. So basically, I think that one of the things that a lot of people need to take from this session today is that, number one, there's no competition that should be put in front of us, or we mustn't try to make this a wish list or checklist of competition. We will miss the mark that way. Number two, like Titi said, we cannot avoid the place of scenario planning. We need to actually look at all the odds. What are the odds? We need to play funny scenarios. What if should come into the context of our conversation, I believe. What if we don't totally go to resume? So that the issue of proactiveness is laid to rest. However, there's something I need to add as we want to bring this to a close, is this. I feel that the burden on the average educator is a little bit too much, or is that correct? Should I say a little bit too much? Is not correct. But there's a huge burden on every educator, and the burden is ability to migrate online, transition with your mentality and skill. But at the same time, we're now responsible to create content that actually meets all the things that we've been talking about. Listening to Rhoda, listening to Jude, listening to Safety, listening to Titi. What do you think would be the best strategic approach? And this might be maybe our parting shots, as it were. What would you consider as our best strategic approach in getting to tackle this headlong?
Okay, creating content and teaching. Well, it's still like creating your lesson plan and creating your lesson notes and also going to class to teach. So we're already used to that classroom skills, right? So now the most challenging digital skills for teacher is actually editing their videos or making video lessons, or even if up to podcast and editing it. So that skill is very, very important for teachers to learn. And the best way to really approach it is take it one step at a time. You don't really need to make a Marvel movie at this point in time. We're not interested in making a Marvel movie, and you don't need to spend too much time on Zoom. That's the truth. So if you are taking a strategic approach, it just simply means with your smartphone, what can you do? What can you do? And I would say YouTube has always been our backup university. So there are lots of videos on YouTube. And if you need a trainer, always somebody to train you. If it's just left for you to reach out, there's always somebody to train you, or there's always somebody to give you tips, and there's always somebody that can mentor you. Even if it's free, people that can mentor you for free. That's the truth. So the best approach is start with your phone. Even if you don't have a laptop, start with your phone. Play with your phone. If you can do social media, if you can do Facebook and you can do WhatsApp, definitely you can do any that thing that has to do with content creation on your smartphone.
Okay. So Rhoda, very quickly, we are almost out of time, and then Safety Chica, then we'll end it.
I think the best approach, I'm just going to use it as myself. The best approach is to, I always say this, celebrate your strengths. What are you great at? See, one thing that I've learned to do personally is to always talk about the things that I can wake up in the morning and speak about for 1 hour, non-stop. What are you great at? The truth is that if you are great at that particular thing, let's say you are a classroom teacher, and your biggest strength as a core academic classroom teacher, you take English, mathematics, science, and social studies, and it is science that tickles your fancy and that you can wake up and talk about easily. Believe me, that comfort in your intelligence will permeate through you being able to create content around it. So start with your strength, because your strength are the things that you need. It's kind of things we say to teachers when we are telling them to work with children with special needs and disabilities. So first of all, identify what they can do. So your best approach is, look, what are my strengths? What am I great at? Immediately you are doing that, then follow this approach. Record your lessons first and play it back. Play it back, record, and slowly use that SAMR. Everybody needs to know how to adopt that approach, because it is like your slow substitution into your slow integration into a complete use of technology. Right? So it's called SAMR. Build knows this. You can even Google it and start studying. Start with what you can substitute. Do videos first. Then show your face. Be comfortable. Look for how. If you mean that you don't show your face first. Start without showing your face. Use your audio. Use PowerPoint. Start slow and grow. Celebrate your strengths and start with something you can substitute, not something you will augment, not something you will replace. Start with something you can substitute immediately, from paper to what? From YouTube, from instead of YouTube to recorded lesson. Video on your face to audio. Start with simple substitution.
Okay. So quickly, Titi and safety check, 10 seconds, please.
He's muted. We can't hear you. You're muted.
My advice, my closing remarks is just keep learning. Just keep learning. Just keep learning.
Fantastic.
All the teachers, whether you're public school, private school, headmistress, school owner, just keep learning. This is just that's my attitude.
And I'll just add to that.
And safety check.
Yes, I'll just add to that because they've all mentioned the aspect of being willing to learn. I also say that don't feel ashamed to learn anything. Nobody has everything all figured out. We are all learning, we're all in the process. So don't feel ashamed that, oh, you're just learning something now. It's not a big deal. We're all a work in progress.
Progress, not perfection.
Awesome. Okay, so like I said, okay, Rhoda, someone is asking, where is the dyslexic training holding?
This Saturday, just send me a direct message. Look for Roger or you send me a direct message. I'll send you the link. This Saturday is going to be super awesome. Like, I'm loaded. Like, I'm ready.
I would also remind everyone that Tose Tech is starting today, so there's an opening ceremony at 11.
I was about saying that actually.
Rhoda is a moderator, so let's come out as well to support our SLSC.
Be there.
Okay.
Be there. So my question is solid. Be there.
Yeah.
Solid question.
Okay. Okay, so this is in the spirit of announcement. I know that there are several people celebrating their birthdays today. We have a close friend of the house, Omobola Larry Bibe's birthday is today. So we're saying happy birthday to her. Is listening. Yeah. And then it's my dad's birthday today as well. It's actually girls for
Happy birthday, Daddy!
So
happy birthday to Papa.
So we're going to have someone in the studio play a birthday song to take us out and close the curtain on the show today. So funny enough, she's one of our favorites. She's an educator. She's one of our favorite online people. She and excellent teacher are always logging on. So we're going to present Abigail, the sax educator, saxophonist. So let's have her play. All right. Okay, so Abigail, over to you. Please unmute your mic.
Oh, this is so nice.
Rotary, when my birthday is coming, you have to plan something. Yeah, you have notice in January.
You said? I'm afraid we're having some network issues. Okay. Okay. All right. I'm afraid that we are having an interference. Again, it's been a great time. It's been a great time. We'd like to thank everyone who's joined us today on the show. We'd like to appreciate you. And hello?
I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Okay.
We can hear you.